Cool, cool, cool. All right, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Financial Life Podcast. This is the Military Monday segment where I feature my fellow veterans to help us out, get the word of what we do, promote us, because the way to look at it is why only celebrate us on Veterans Day and Memorial Weekend? Fair enough, but like, what about the other days of the year? So. With that being said, and before I get into it, introduce my guest here today, which we'll have a great conversation on. He has a good history, and this will be interesting. What we'll learn today. Some of you may know, some of you may not know. I do some things with financial literacy, helping people with business credit, educating people on credit, one-on-one coaching. If you like help with any one of those areas, you can schedule a free 30-minute call with me. And to do that, just go to speakwithmatt.info. Again, speakwithmatt.info. No need to put the triple W, speakwithmatt.info, speakwithmatt.info. That'll take you directly to my calendar, book a call, and we'll talk. With that being said, everybody, let's get to my guests. We got Art on the call with me today on the podcast. I appreciate you for being on, man. I know we're supposed to do this almost like 6 months ago, it seems like, and then you had
Oh
some
yeah,
things.
yeah,
Yeah. So I thank you for being on for doing this and sitting down and taking some time because also because last month we met up and you gave us a good advice too as well on the networking call we had for the veterans community as well.
yeah. It's a pleasure to be here. I really enjoy doing these, and my personal mission is to add value to somebody every day. So hopefully today this is going to add value to somebody.
I hope so. That's
Yeah,
what I look at it too. It's like if I could just help just one person, you're like you're set because then it goes on to other people as well. You know.
yeah, yeah.
So So what's your story, sir? Because I know we talked a little about it. I think you were Air Force and then other things. Let's start there, your background on all that fun stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've been so incredibly fortunate. I got nominated to go to the Air Force Academy, so I spent 4 years there. And I spent 23 years in the Air Force and got to fly the F-111 you see here, which kind of dates me, I guess. It's been out of the inventory for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, then I pissed somebody off along the lines, got sentenced to 4 years in the Pentagon. So that's pretty good. And learned a lot about how our government works, more than I ever wanted to know. But
Really?
yeah, I had to justify and spend $880 million a year of your tax money. So I uh, I
Wow.
operated, I paid for everything on the F-111 and the A-10. Fuel, training, maintenance, research and development. And I had to justify all that to the congressional staffers. So that
Wow.
was always a chore. And after that, I got thrown out of my 3 stars office 3 times over retiring this thing. Excuse me. So it was clear when he went to be in charge of all the fighter, the command that had all the fighters.
Yeah.
Um, you don't forget a name like Bierschbach. So I was not going to get a fighter squadron. So I
You're like,
went,
oh shit, here we go again. You're like, yeah.
yeah, I went to be the program manager on what's now the F-35 propulsion system.
Okay.
So I had the Air Force part of the team that developed that propulsion system, which suited me well to go to Raytheon. And I went to Raytheon, I got into their continuous improvement program and discovered immediately that I had some really great projects and I had some real dogs. And the difference was always the team lead I was working with. So each one of those projects became a leadership development project um, to get better results. So from there, I went to a nonprofit that helps small and medium-sized manufacturers. So I went from being an internal consultant in a $2 billion a year company to, some that were just mom and pop and trying to
Wow.
get them better. And from there, I kind of struck out on my own and I did leadership. I did continuous improvement, still with a focus on leadership. So I'm really trying to get people to be better leaders. And in 2016, I kind of plateaued. I just wasn't growing. And I believe people are like fruit. You're either ripening or you're rotting.
Hmm.
And since I wasn't learning, I was rotting. So I joined the John Maxwell team and I got certified as a Maxwell coach and trainer. If you're not familiar with John, he is the world's expert right now in leadership.
Oh yeah.
He's
Doesn't
written about
doesn't he have like 100 million books on
yeah,
leadership?
he's written
It's like
about
so
100 books
many.
on leadership. And for me, it was invaluable because not only did I get regular calls that, John was teaching, he has a team that mentors in each area. And
Mm,
in his mentorship program, um, Monday mornings, there's a call on business, develop your business. Tuesday is leadership. And that's usually led by Mark Cole, who's John's CEO, and he is in charge of everything, everything John Maxwell. And the guy is superb. Um, Wednesdays, it's coaching. Thursdays, it's public speaking. Fridays, it kind of rotates various topics.
yeah.
And Saturday morning is for new folks getting started. So I could be on calls with John every day, all day, with John, one of his mentoring team, and never do any work. So you got to pick and choose.
Right.
But yeah, really, really top notch, top level things that challenge you, challenge your thinking. And it's, for me, it's been wonderful. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I take that knowledge and I say I try and give business owners their lives back. I look for business owners that they're just buried in today. A business owner is buried in today's shipment, today's service calls, um, you know, today's problems, today's vendor issues. And she gets home at the end of the day and it's like, I'm exhausted.
Right.
And she can't work on the business. She's so busy working in the business.
Yeah.
So I want to teach them to develop the leaders on their team, teach them to delegate, teach them to let go. That's usually a big problem.
Yeah.
And then get them to work on what I feel business owners ought to be working on: vision, values, vision, mission. If you're communicating those to your team, you're going to grow your business. You got to, John Wooden said, when opportunity knocks, it's too late to prepare. You have to become the person that can run a $10 million a year business before you're going to have a $10 million a year business. The growth has to occur first.
I like that. That's good. I didn't think about that. Like when opportunity knocks, you don't have time to prepare. It's you're there, and that's a good point. It reminds me of the military. Military is like that. It's like you got to be on ready to go at any moment's notice.
Mhm.
Doesn't matter. It
Yeah,
like this sucks. Too bad. Pivot. What we do? All right, it sucks. Pivot, and it's constantly like that. Well, that's a good
yeah,
point. And you're right. That you're right when you say on the whole. If you like you said about running a $10 million business, like you got to be act like you're doing it right now. Then you get there and you're prepared for it. You're practiced
yeah,
versus being thrown in
yeah,
the game. You're like, what am I doing? Well, you had time, you know.
yep.
I want to ask you this question because because leadership is huge in the military because
Mhm.
that's required. Like they have to have leaders, otherwise the military wouldn't be where it is today, or any military in the entire world. It's always looking for more leaders to lead more people. From your experience being in the Air Force, and I guess maybe to work with the veterans, like what do you? I guess my question is like, what are the problems with the leadership in the military? Because I know from where I was, our big problem with leadership was we weren't prepared for it to like, I'm gonna start preparing you now, even though you're new from day one. It was like once you got the NCO, all right, you're a leader now. It's like, wait a minute, I don't know all what's happening. It's like you're expected to know. It's like that just screws you up. You know what I mean?
Um, yeah, the Air Force, the military in general is always developing leaders. And it's because I go out and I lead a four ship. If I'm the one that takes a hit, there has to be somebody there that's ready to step up.
Yeah.
So you've already talked about that. You have the deputy flight lead. You know who's going to take over. And you always have that person who's been prepared to step up. So, in the business world, what does that mean? Well, it means at every level, you should have two or three people you are grooming to be prepared to step up. So
Right.
you have a choice. Um, and I've been so extremely fortunate that I've had some really great leaders. And, I'm reminded of, who was it? St. Augustine, I think, said, you should always be preaching Sometimes you even have to use words. To me, that's leadership in the military. It's not what you say, it's what you show people.
Right.
I had I had a commander over in Europe. General Bracken was a superb leader. He never once talked to me about leadership, but he showed me.
Mm,
It's the things he did, the example
yeah.
he set. Um, so now in the business world, yeah, I want you to show them, but I want you to be much more intentional. You have to, the primary job of a leader is to develop more leaders. To paraphrase Mark Cole, the CEO I mentioned, um, I have never had anybody come up to me and say, "Hey, Art, I have a really big problem. I have too many great leaders." Never heard that,
Yeah, I've
right?
never heard that either. You're right. No one said
Yeah,
that. It's like it's
yeah,
usually I don't have anyone to I can pass the baton on to. It's like you can't do that.
yeah,
Wow. Oh, I had nothing I was going to ask you. Leadership is a big thing, and it's not just limited to business. It's also in your personal life. And I remember years ago, I was on a different network marketing opportunity, and they talked about leadership as well. And one of the people speaking, she said, "Well, if you don't have anyone to lead, you have yourself." I was like, "Really?" And it's like, "Well, if you can't lead yourself, how you gonna lead the people?" And now I remember what I was gonna say. The
yeah,
janitor talking about he didn't talk the talk, he was walking the walk. He's like, I'm gonna shut up and I'm gonna show you. Because with behavior is the highest form of communication that there is. And
yeah,
so you just did it and you're like, okay, and you observe it. So that's a good leader to have when you see him, you're like, okay, that's what I
yeah,
need to do. Cool.
yeah. And real quick, let me address this bit about, I'm not leading anybody. I'll bet you are. You just haven't thought about it. You may not be leading anybody at work, but first of all, if you have a boss you're leading up, you have to influence that person above you.
Mm,
So you're leading up. Second, you probably have a leadership role somewhere in your life, in your family. I mean, it's not a switch you turn off and on. So you have to lead. Maybe at church, you have a role, um, coaching a kid's soccer team, perhaps.
yeah,
Or, if you're a solopreneur, you are leading a potential client to be a customer. You have to lead them through that process. So we all have leadership roles. It's just sometimes we don't recognize them.
that's a good point. Because I think when people, I know, I used to think of this. I think most people, when they think of leadership, they think of someone who's leading a company or some team or whatnot, like business wise. It's that it but it doesn't just it's not limited to those functions. It's also
Mhm.
like I said, your church, if you're doing this, coaching kids game, your family, because it's a universal thing, I want to say, if that makes any sense. It goes
Yeah.
beyond that. We're not aware of it. We're like, oh, I'm done leading today. Like, no, you're not.
You're
Even if you
always
have
leading.
pets. Now I think about it, pets look up to you as well. It's like this is what it is.
Yeah. And you're always on stage. People are always looking at the leader. You know, you can be in Walmart and you can totally lose it with somebody, employer somebody, and just really be unprofessional. You don't know if somebody you're leading is the next aisle over hearing you.
Right.
So, you're just, it's not something you turn on and off. You're always a leader.
I guess next question is, are you aware of it? What's happening? That's the thing. It's like most people are like, I'm
Yeah,
done. I'm like, no, you're not aware of it. Are you right? Well, let me ask you this.
yeah,
Let, let me give you a scenario, right? Let's use Walmart because people hate Walmart. Walmart,
yeah,
I still give a loving relationship. We hate it,
yeah.
but it's so convenient. We're like, ah. So let's use
Mhm.
Walmart in this sense. And let's say there's an employee there, all right? And they're not necessarily happy with they're just there observing, not observing, watching the cashier, the
Yeah.
register, because now they're automating things like that. Like if they're trying to make a change in their life, and let's say whether that's trying to move in Walmart or whatever it is, like what would you say to them, having your experience with leadership, say, all right, you don't like where you're at, here's how leadership is going to lead you to where you want to be, as an example.
Yeah, a large part of that is leading yourself, and it's the decisions you make. you should always have goals. You should know where you want to go. Um, it doesn't mean they won't change on occasion, um, because your circumstances change.
Yeah.
But having those goals, and in a way, I look at it like I look at succession planning. So where are you at today? What are your strengths? What skills do you have? How can you develop those skills for where you want to go? So, go back to my example, the $10 million a year company. If you want to own that company, what skills does that business owner have? How does that compare to your current skill set? And then the delta is your growth plan. Those are the things you have to learn and grow into to become that person. So,
That's
you look at your goals, look where you want to be, and decide what are the skills that person has to have to be successful there.
right.
And then you look inside and say, which of those skills do I not have yet? Do I need to develop? Um,
Right. I keep going back to like it's this reverse engineering. Like
yeah,
look at where you
yeah,
want
I
to
hadn't thought of
be,
that,
who
but
you want to
yeah,
be. I like it, and I like how you said it's looking at the person, like that person has that business or whatever it is. What skills do they have? Who are they? And I forgot myself because a lot of people look at here's where I'm at, here's what I want to be, here's what I need, but like who need to be, look what they have, and then go, okay, do what skills do I have? What don't I have? Okay, I need to develop X, Y, and Z, and then from there you can track your journey as far as how to work out. Nobody knows, but you know what kind of like milestones and guideposts you need to hit
yeah.
to get there.
Hmm.
I like that. This is good. This is good. Today's episode's done. Thanks, everybody. Click.
Yeah,
Today's episode is brought to you by the letter L for leadership. Sesame Street. You're welcome.
yeah. Okay.
Oh, jeez. No, that's good advice. Or not advice, but a good map to look at. Here's where you're at. Here's where I want to be. The
Yep.
person that you need to become, what do they have skills wise, everything else that you need to develop
Mhm.
now? I don't think a lot of people look at that. We just look at, I want to be there. What needs to be in place? What I need to do, you know,
Yeah,
as far as
yeah.
that.
And not but it's not what do I need to do? What do I need to become?
Exactly. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
that question. Not what I need to do. It's like, well, what do I need to become first?
Hmm.
And then take it back from there.
Yeah.
So next question I got is what what are the mistakes that you see people make in regards to, trying to grow the business, with trying to get where things are. One of you mentioned, I've heard a common thing is they have a tough time letting go of certain things to let it go to someone else, which I don't think I'm an issue. I'd be like, you do this, I don't care. I suck at this, go do that. This is what I'm good at. You do the same thing, I
Yeah.
don't care. That's me.
Well, as you grow your business, you need to be looking at, yeah, what can I take off my plate? What can I delegate? But how do I develop that person so they are prepared to take on that task? So you're delegating to them. And, the classic, if you look at, a heating and cooling company, it's, mom and pop. Pop is out there doing the service calls, mom's in the office doing the admin. And they they both are thinking about their doers. They do their task. And then they get enough business, they hire that full-time technician who's going to go out on service calls, with the owner at first, and they're still thinking like doers. They're not thinking like leaders developing this person. They're usually pretty good at OJT, so they train them to go on a service call on their own,
Yeah.
but they're still thinking like people that do the day-to-day task. So at that point, the business owner needs to start making that transition from doing the day-to-day things to being the business owner, and needs to become the business owner that is capable of leading a, a business that has five technicians on five different service calls that day.
Right.
So it's the change in thought that really, the way you look at the world. Um, leaders look at the world differently. They look at it with a leadership bias. It's not necessarily what can I do, it's who is ready to take this on and who can I assign it to, which is a different way of thinking.
It is a different way of thinking. Yeah, it's not so much I got to do it, it's who can I give this task to and build them up to take it from there because you can't do
Yeah,
it all yourself all the time. You don't go very
yeah.
far.
And I
Now,
think the other, I'm,
I'll finish.
okay. Yeah, the other thing a business owner needs to develop is looking at the world um, by leading the mission, okay, not doing. In the military, when we get sent on a mission, we know the minute we step out the door, everything's going to change. We had a great plan, but guess what? The enemy
Change.
doesn't. The enemy, yeah, enemy isn't aware of that. They're going to do
Right.
something, so we have to adapt. So it's important we understand what the commander wants. We call it commander's intent. Okay, so everything you decide as the plan changes is focused on that commander's intent. Well, in the business world, we're not very good at that. We're not very good at communicating what we want. So when you develop your vision, having a vision is great. But if all the employees don't know it and use it to make their day-to-day decisions, you may as well not have it.
Right.
So the owner's job is to make sure everybody in the company is clear, so clear on the vision that they can use that vision to make day-to-day decisions. So as they're out on a service call or if they're out with a customer and things are changing, they make decisions according to how does this help us achieve the company's vision?
Right. Yeah, that brings up a point. I've read this in like a couple books. I can't think of the names right now, but they do talk about the vision and the vision of the company and like the company values and how a lot of companies don't focus on selling the vision and values to the employees and saying this is what we're about, and then tying it into well, one hiring the right people that buy into that they like that, and then two also they don't tie into this is my opinion how if they buy into the vision and values of the company, here's how to help you achieve your own goals versus that's what the company wants. I'm just here to like work, and it's a totally different thing.
Yes.
They buy into, and that's why I think Apple was so successful because they do their own like company events and like everyone's like so excited, like yo, they come out, we got this, and I'm like, wow, I want to be part of that. You can see it. Like,
Mhm.
I'm like, I want to be part of that because it's like everyone's like, it's like they make it a part of your partner's company too. You're a hand in this, not just an employee. And I feel like if you have that, you're going to stay at the company a lot longer than most places. It's going to be real
Yeah.
hard to get to go anywhere else.
Yeah. Every employee should understand one, that they're doing important work, but two, what's in it for me.
Yeah,
Everybody, everybody should understand that if this company achieves that vision, here's what is in it for me. And owners need to communicate that because most people, if you look at most people on an assembly line, they don't know the company vision. They don't know what's the benefit to them if the company achieves a vision.
yeah,
And it's not always clear that they know they're doing important work. People want to know that what they're doing is worthwhile.
yeah,
What they're doing is important. So it's up to us to make that clear to everybody.
yeah. That's a good point. No one talks about it because I've been in companies where it's like they appreciate you in some places they don't. And I had one boss I didn't realize it until I finally like left or like she would always like at the end of the day she would always thank us and I was like why are you thanking me? Is this my job? But like she meant it like thank you and I was like I got used to that and then it's like I'm not being thanked. I'm like oh like thank you. I'm like you're welcome. But at the time I was like I'm just doing my job like I enjoy being able to thank you for but that was just that small thing means I was like wow
Yeah,
I mean they appreciate you showing up and doing the things and people love you. I was
yeah.
like, okay, cool.
Well, think about it for a minute. If she if she didn't show up for a day, how much of the business gets done? Almost all of it, right?
Right.
Yeah. But if none of her employees showed up, how much work gets done?
None of it.
Yeah, yeah.
It just falls
These
apart.
these employees are valuable. And
Yeah.
it's not, are ask a business owner the question, are your employees volunteers? And most business owners say, no, I pay them. Well, all you're doing is you're renting their body for 8 hours a day.
Right. I
What
think
you
a point.
need,
You're being rented out for 8 hours a day. What am I, some
yeah,
prostitute?
what you need from them is you need their enthusiasm, their
Yeah.
creativity. Those are things you can't demand. They have to volunteer those.
Yeah, you do have to have that. You know what?
So
No, finish. Oh, another thing that reminds me that piggyback what you're saying.
yeah, no, if your employees aren't volunteering those things, what happens? They finish a task and they wait to get told what to do next.
Right.
That's
Right.
one of the things I look for in a company to evaluate the leadership. Do they finish a task and go find something else to do that helps the company move towards their vision?
Right.
That's a volunteer. That's not just, that's not a rented body. It's a volunteer. You
Yeah,
need,
you're right on that. It's definitely different when you're there and you're there because you enjoy it and you're doing it and let's get this and get this done. You don't have to ask questions like, all right, what else are we doing? Like we can't sit around or whatnot. Because that reminds me, I used to work with kids and like they could tell the parents could tell that we enjoyed what we were doing. And I didn't know at the time because I hadn't seen other like kid plays how they operate, but they've been there and they're like, no, and I remember the first time I was told this, one of the parents was like, yeah, you really enjoy what you're doing. I'm like, wait, I do? You can tell? I was like, yeah, I can tell. I'm like, how do you know? And he's like, well, we've been to other places, the other like a competition, like they're just there to just get a paycheck. I was like, really? I'm like, how are they not enjoying this stuff? But it's what it is. Like we enjoy that in
yeah,
the parents like, oh my God, you got you. I'm like, yeah, let's do more, blah, blah, And they could tell. And that's a good thing because when you really enjoy it, you don't own it, you're like, I'm gonna do this all the time. This is great. But that makes a point
yeah,
to add to
yeah.
that. Jeez. Question, and this is something that I saw on a guy I found on YouTube called Angry Man, and he had a topic on one of his shows. This was last month sometime, so recent.
Mhm.
And the topic was on servant leadership. And I've
Okay.
read that so many times in books. I think, well, you correct me on this. I think John Maxwell talks about being a leader and serving. And his take on it was servant leadership doesn't make sense because if you're leading, you can't be like asking people like for their approval and things. You just got to lead and what works. And people say, no, I disagree. And my girlfriend just didn't agree. And I was like, well, I was looking for both perspectives because again, it's like on one hand, I don't want your take on this. You can't just be like, this is what we're doing, screw you guys, and just not and just disregard people because then you're an asshole, you become a dictator. So dictators do. They don't care. And then if you fight them, well, then you get beat or you get killed if you're lucky. You know.
Yeah.
On one hand I got it, and on the other hand, I was like, well, I see where I did see where it's coming from. You can't be like, hey guys, I want to know if this is okay, we can do these things and blah blah blah. So, what's your take on that? Is leadership about serving people? Is it serving, or is it like we need to do this, and yet at the same time, you're still doing the job, and people are still getting benefit from it, and all that stuff. So,
Yeah.
what's your take on that?
Um, well, there's a couple different directions I want to go, and there's a lot to be said here. So
Yeah, I know. Perfect
we
question to
probably
ask
have
people.
several
People, I was like,
hours
let
on
me
this
know.
alone.
Yeah.
But first of all, what is leadership? Okay.
Hmm.
John Maxwell says leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. Um, but according to that model, you know, John would agree that who were some of the most influential people of the 20th century? You have to include Hitler, Pol Pot, Stalin. They were
Yeah.
very influential, but I don't consider them good leaders.
Right.
So there's something more to it, and
Mm.
it has to do with values. Okay, so a leader has to have what I would say are good values.
Right.
And it is influence, but it's influence for what? It's influence to work enthusiastically to achieve goals for the common good. So
Hmm.
this circles back to that, what's in it for me? They
Right.
have to know what the common good is and agree that it's good for them too. So you lead people in that direction and you do it. I tell business owners they need to love their people. And I get everything from a shrug to I could go to jail for that. No, 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 not that kind of love.
No, no,
That's
no,
not.
no, 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 yeah, not the.
um, and I'm a person of faith. So for me, I'll tell you that, I look, what does the Bible say about love? And what it says is in 1 Corinthians 13, love is about behaviors, not feelings. We tend to think of love in terms of feelings.
Right.
No. When I say you have to love your people, it means you need to behave well towards them. So what do I mean by that? I have what I call behaviors for success. Um, you have to be patient with your people. You have to treat them kindly. You have to show humility. You have to be respectful. Sometimes you have to be selfless, which means putting their needs before even your own, which
Right.
actually I think is a pretty good definition of leadership in itself. You have to be forgiving. You have to have integrity, and you have to be committed to this way to all your people. So I say, you don't have to like all your people on your team, but you do have to love them. So, and nothing in that list says you don't hold people accountable. It's the way you
Mm,
do it.
right.
Okay. Yes, in fact, integrity says you have to hold people accountable.
Yeah.
You're not being honest with your people if they think they're doing a good job and they're not.
Right.
So you have to have tough conversations sometimes,
Yeah.
but that's part of serving people. Um, you know, it, if you look at an org chart, what's the role of the leader? Look at an org chart. Where is the CEO? Right at the top, right?
Right.
Where did we get that model from? It comes from the military. It comes from Genghis Khan, and even before that.
Really.
Okay, king at the top, and then you got the princes and all the dukes and all the nobility, and who's down there at the bottom? The warriors.
Right.
Well, who do the warriors deal with? The enemy. We take that model and we put it into the business world. CEOs at the top, and then all the presidents, then the VPs. You get all the way down to the workers. Who do the workers interact with?
People.
Customers.
Yeah.
So we are equating customers and enemy, right? I don't like that model.
Right.
Flip it around. Who's at the top? Customers. Who takes care of the customers? Day-to-day workers.
Right.
And then you have all the levels of management till you get down to the CEO supporting this whole structure.
Yeah.
Okay? The job at each level, as you go down, is to support those above. You support by setting expectations, make sure they have the skills, knowledge, and training to do their job. And then looking ahead for roadblocks. The biggest difference between being a worker and that frontline supervisor, that first leadership role you have in the company, is where you're looking. The worker is looking at doing this task.
Yeah.
That supervisor saying, what do my people need to succeed tomorrow? So they're getting everything lined up. They're making sure they have all the parts. They're making sure they have, all the tools, whatever they need, so that when the tasks roll in for tomorrow, the workers have everything they need.
Right.
And so your role becomes looking ahead and removing roadblocks. You're serving your people. You're not dictating to them.
Gotcha.
Wrong answer. Did we get there?
No, no, we know it definitely we got there.
Okay.
Yeah, it makes sense because it's one of those discussion questions never gonna end. It's like an open-ended.
Hmm.
No, the other thing I didn't. You make a good point too, where you said influential leaders of the 20th century. Like, okay, you're like Hitler and Stalin, and I'm like,
Hmm.
as much as we did, as much as we were like they're evil and degree, they had influence because otherwise we wouldn't know
Yeah,
about them. That's true. And it's like, because Hitler had influence, like, it's crazy. And I'm like, how did he do? I've always asked myself, like, how did you go from like a nothing, no one knew you to like the leader of Germany and starting and invading other countries? You don't do that being able to influence people. Same thing with Stalin and all that stuff. Like, as much as we don't agree with them, they were studying because then you can use what they did for good to actually benefit people and bring peace, not just kill everyone and everything else. But that's a good point because they were influential. They were. And it's like, and we still talk about
yeah,
it to this day.
yeah,
And Mussolini too. It's like these guys don't get there by accident. It's like they knew what they were doing. They had to talk to people, sell them their
mhm,
ideas, their vision, and be like, if you do this, and like, and it works.
yeah, it does. Well, everybody would agree that, you know, how you feel influences how you act,
Right.
right? It works the other way too. How you act influences how you feel about things. And, you can use that for good or bad. You can, you know, think about a married couple. They've been married for eons and they start just treating each other differently. It's not like all the touchy-feely dating kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But if you go back to treating your wife like you're courting her again, those feelings come back too. So the way you behave influences how you feel towards things. It works the other way too. If you look at in wartime, we start doing things like calling the enemy gooks and Japs and geek, whatever the words are, it makes it easier to kill them
Yeah.
because you have bad feelings about it. So it influences your behavior that way too. So, the way we behave towards people, and that's why I'm such a believer in these behaviors for success. If you behave well towards people, you start to feel good towards them.
Right.
So it builds on itself.
Yeah. An infinite feedback loop. Do one thing this, then it just re-encourages
Yeah,
the other or
sure
reinforces the
does.
other. Ah, I see. Learn some new things today or another discussion. See, the leadership conversation never gets old because every time I come back to it, I feel like there's always a new perspective I get or I learn something new. It's never the same thing the last time I looked at it or a year before, whatever. Um,
Absolutely.
because I've read two of his books on leadership, John C. Maxwell, and they're all good. It's all practical information and stories of what he's done, and he's built this successful company that I think
Mhm.
isn't it international?
Oh yeah. Yeah. We have certified coaches, and I think we're up to like 45 or 50,000, and they're all around the world. So
Yeah,
I get on one of the mentoring calls, and we usually check in just saying, hi, I'm Art and I'm in Arizona or something like that.
yeah,
But one time I started, writing down every time I heard a different country. And I think I heard like 15 countries that were in on that call.
nice.
So yeah, all around the world. And
It's a universal thing. It doesn't matter what
yeah,
country it is. Leaders come up, whether they're going to benefit humanity or benefit their group of people and
yeah,
everything else. You see it right now in the political landscape, the business, all the things, and it's never a dying thing because it's part of human
yeah,
nature. We're always looking for like where we're going to go, who's going to be in charge that we're going to put in charge, and hopefully they don't turn on us, and then we're all kind of like under some authoritarianism. As you can see, I mean, it's funny. I'm really thinking about this now. I'm looking about like all these people are leaders, and like they got there, and they're just locked their people up. I can't even say this now. When Fidel Castro was still alive, man, he got up leader now, and I forget who's in charge now. They're in Cuba and all these other things, and it's like. You cannot, let me ask you this, to be a leader, do you feel like you have to have some sort of charisma to be a leader and not just be like boring?
you
Especially
have to
on
be
the
able to
bigger thing.
communicate.
Yeah,
Yeah, you have to be able to communicate. Now, charisma is one of those magic qualities that, yeah, that it really does help the leader. But if you are You know, if you're behaving well towards people, you're helping them to grow, you're setting reasonable goals, um, then people will follow you.
Yeah.
It's leaders, we look for a great vision that we can push, we can advance. Most people in your team, they don't start that way. They buy into you as the leader first, and then they buy into the vision.
Right.
So you have to show them that you're a good leader, which isn't a title. I mean, the title will get people to follow you for maybe 20 seconds. After
Yeah.
that, it's are you giving them a reason to follow you? Are you giving them something? Are they developing? Are they learning? Do they see a future that, for them, there's something in it for them? So that they really buy into the leader first, and then they buy into the vision.
Yeah. There's Napoleon Hill has a audio series called Selling Yourself. And then people buy you, and then they'll buy whatever you're selling them, the vision. And
Yeah.
because you think about it, no one wants to buy from someone that they don't like. Like I hate this guy. Like it's like no one you just won't. No matter how great the
Yeah.
thing is, you won't. You'll go to
Yeah.
someone else selling the same thing.
Why do people change jobs?
Because they don't like the job, they
It's
want to do
usually
something
because
better.
of the job. Yeah. Yeah. People don't usually just quit a job. There's something going on there, and they don't quit the job. They fire their leader. They fire the boss.
Right.
So they go find people, they always say they're working for the money, but in actual fact, if you read through the HR studies, the money's like fourth on the list. It's more important how they're treated. If
Mm,
they think they're doing important work, if they see the value there, those are things that are important to them. So
right.
if you're if a company has turnover problems, that's a leadership problem.
Yeah. I see that happening right now with another company
Yeah,
in the whole YouTube space. Another company that's known for producing content, they're just losing like some big name stars who've
yeah,
they've gone off, started their own YouTube channels, and they blew up. And I'm like, oh, so I don't know what's going on. I'm like, you need to correct yourself because you're losing big name people who are now
yeah,
better off on their own. It's like they were their own
yes,
stars. And then you're right.
yep.
When you have a company that does that, it's just like, how's the company sustain? Like, let me ask you, like, okay, high turnover rates is very common in the world of sales, and one of them that's notorious for, and I've been there, was when you're sales consultant for a gym, because the gym is so focused on just numbers, 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 and it's like you need to chill out, slow down.
Mhm.
And then I've seen it in my dad because like at the gym I go to, it's like there's a new salesperson. It seems like every other 6 months or so. Same thing with the
Mhm.
personal trainers. Like it keeps changing. I'm like, what do you like? You need to not be so focused on the numbers. And because then what happens is I remember this. You get pressured and you start looking at the person in front of you as a number, as a
Mhm.
transaction, and it screws it up. And then the other thing too that was dumb was they're like, well, it was conflicting. They would say you got to hear numbers, well, you got to give them the so and so experience to give them. So I'm like, I can't focus on that if you want me to hit numbers all the time. It doesn't work.
Mhm. Yeah, a company like that where they have constant turnover, you just have to look at how are the people being treated.
Yeah,
And that goes back to those behaviors. Is the owner patient? If he's so focused on numbers, I'll bet not. Does he treat people kindly? Yeah, I question that one. So you go down the list,
yeah,
and it a lot of times it is humility.
right.
What does it mean? Humility means you're being authentic with people, and you're always open to learning, and you're always open to listening. The first job of a leader is to listen. So you have to know what people need, what they want.
Yep.
Um, and the other thing about humility is everybody in the world knows something I don't know. And if I'm an asshole, they won't teach it to me.
Oh no.
I have to treat people well. So if I think I know it all, I mean, the biggest impediment to learning is thinking you already know it.
Yeah, I know this. Okay, shut down.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Mhm.
Wow. Oh wow, cool, cool, cool. Well, Art, I thank you for being on. This has been a good episode and a great conversation on leadership, which again, it never gets old. It's never a
Yep.
topic. I'm like, I'm so sick of this. I'm like, no, it's something new. Oh, something different. I go.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, any last parting thoughts, words of wisdom you want to share with anyone?
Um, I honestly want to help people. So if people just have a question, get in touch. You can go to my website, it's top there, and get in touch with me. But if you really want to lead a bigger company, you need to grow. So there's a few ways we can do that. I run leadership classes using the mastermind format. Right now, I got 3 different ones going, and I'm sure we can fit somebody into one of those. I do one-on-one coaching that help businesses grow. And for bigger companies, I like to do seminars. So, we're teaching people about leadership. And for me, a perfect seminar for 4 hours, I come in with 8 hours of material and I cover 2 hours of it. Because that means for
Wow.
2 hours, we're talking about issues people want to learn about. What's their issue? What's going on in their workplace?
Right.
So, we can mix these up, but, if somebody wants to grow as a leader, I'd love to be the person that helped. And if we talk, hit it off with me, we got like 45,000 John Maxwell coaches. I can find somebody that'll help them.
It ain't me. It's somebody else I can microphone for
Yeah.
you.
Um,
Cool,
and,
cool.
and I don't worry about competition because I know if every leadership coach there is 100% occupied, we still can't cover everybody that needs to learn about leadership. So, yeah, let's grow together.
I like it. How can people reach out to you and contact you?
Yeah, go to my website. You can go to art at b10consulting.com. Bierschbach has 11 letters. So B10 was my flying nickname.
I like
So B,
that.
yeah,
Easy to
BTEN
remember. The
consulting.
Art
Yeah,
B10. That's it.
yeah. So those are the easiest 2 ways, but that website is probably the easiest one to remember because
Yourbusinesswingman.com. I like it.
everybody needs a wingman. You you can't see your blind spots. You need a
Nope.
wingman to point those out. What are you blind to? Where do you need to grow?
I like it. Cool. Art, again, thanks for being on. It's been a good episode and all that
I
stuff.
really enjoyed this. Thanks, Matt.
It's always a good conversation. I was like, let's talk
Yep.
about leadership because it never gets old. With that being said, everybody, thanks for being on. Art, I'll see you in the next one.
Thank you.